Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. This is part one of the new woody plants for 2026. I broke it up into two different parts just so that we didn't have an hour-long PowerPoint presentation. So this is going to be the first half of the alphabet broken up by Latin name, not by common name. So we'll have A through G in this one, and then there will be part two, which will be H through the rest of the alphabet. So come in and join me, see what we have for 2026. All right, our first new woody plant for us for 2026 is a barberry. It's called Crimson Cutie. It's in the worry-free series, which means that it is not invasive with the berries. The flower is very small on this. It's pretty insignificant, but a lot of people like the barberries just because of the different colored foliage. This one also is pretty small, so it's easier to fit into smaller landscapes. The mature size is going to be about 1.5 to 2 feet tall and 3 to 3.5 feet wide at maturity. Hardiness zone is 4 to 9, and this one does prefer full sun to part shade, so minimum of 4 hours of sun every day in order to keep that kind of reddish purple leaf color to it, which does happen all season long. You won't get, red in the spring and then it fades to green like some other plants will. This one will stay kind of this maroon color all season long. As a note, it is not walnut tolerant or juglone tolerant, so don't put this by black walnut trees or butternut because it will not survive very well there. This one is actually a good substitute for another variety on the market called Crimson Pygmy, which is invasive. So this one can definitely be substituted in there, and you won't have to worry about it populating the forests here in Wisconsin. Um, it does have thorns on it, kind of like roses do, but they're a little bit smaller. So just know that if you do put this in your landscape, it does have thorns. Um, we get that question sometimes with people who have kids or grandkids that like to be out in the garden, or some pets that like to run around in the gardens too. So just be extra careful if you do have kids or pets that are curious. They are somewhat rabbit and deer resistant, but not completely. You would think with the thorns that they would be, but apparently the rabbits and deer, if they're desperate enough, they will still eat barberry shrubs. This one also has poor salt tolerance and poor drought tolerance. So if you do have it in your landscape, don't put it by driveways or sidewalks. If you put salt down on your sidewalks or driveways, and just make sure that you do give it pretty regular water, especially the first about 3 years before it does get established. We do have a second new barberry for 2026. This one is called Lemon Glow, again in the Worry-Free series, so it is not invasive here. Mature size again is going to be 1.5 to 2 feet tall, and the same 3 to 3.5 feet width that its counterpart that I just talked about is. Again, flowers are not very significant, so I wouldn't buy this for the flowers, but you can see it gets this kind of limey green, yellow foliage, and that will remain on the plant spring and summer. It will get kind of an orangey tint to it in the fall, so you will have a little bit of fall color with this one. Again, hardiness zone is 4 to 9, so it's fairly hardy, especially here in Wisconsin. And in order to keep that yellow color throughout the summer, it will need full sun to part shade. So again, 4 hours or more. If you give it more, or if you give it more shade than sun, it will turn green instead of being this yellow color. Again, not juglone tolerant, doesn't like salt, so keep it away from the driveways and sidewalks again. And with the thorns on this one as well, so just make sure you're aware of the thorns if you have kids or pets who will be in your gardens. And you may or may not have feeding by rabbits and deer, depending on how desperate they are. Okay, so this year I have 3 new boxwoods that I have ordered for the 2026 season because boxwood blight seems to be an issue with some of our customers. Wanted to make sure that we got some in that were more boxwood blight resistant. This one here is called New Gen Freedom. It's 3 to 5 feet tall, 3 to 5 feet wide, It's going to have more of that globe shape like you can see in this photo, very similar to Green Velvet and Chicagoland Green that we already sell. This one is supposed to have a fast growth rate, but with boxwoods, fast means 3 to 6 inches per year. They're not a fast growing plant. Just keep that in mind. You're not going to have a full-size plant in 2 or 3 years. But like I said, this one is bred for its excellent boxwood blight resistance, so that's always a plus. Hardiness zone on this is zone 5 to 8, so it is a little bit touchier here in southern Wisconsin. Boxwoods generally do grow in full sun to full shade, so anything you can throw at it, it will tolerate. They are also jugloan tolerant, so I have 3 or 4 different varieties at my house, among all my walnut trees, underneath the walnut trees, and also kind of planted around the gardens, and they do just fine for me. They're also rabbit and deer resistant, so if you wanted an evergreen, as this is a broadleaf evergreen, it will keep its leaves all season long. So if you wanted one that was deer and rabbit resistant, this is a good option for you. They do have poor salt tolerance, so again, you wouldn't want to put this next to a driveway or sidewalk, just like the barberries, if you do put salt down on your driveways or sidewalks. They will be drought tolerant once they are established. They do not like to have wet feet. So one spot, we've had a couple of people bring their boxwoods back because they had them planted in an area where they put the snow, and then it takes a while to melt in the spring, and then they end up getting their wet feet or wet roots basically, and then they don't do well. So I would keep this in an area that is going to be a little bit drier. Southern exposure is great. I have some of mine in a very rocky, sandy area on my property, and then in a very dry area kind of on the side of a hill where none of the water will stay. So again, they don't like the wet feet, but they're very tolerant of a lot of other problem areas in the landscape. The second new boxwood we're getting in this year is called Renaissance. It's in the Better Boxwood series. This one is a small one, so we get a lot of people asking for boxwoods that are only going to be 1 to 2 feet tall. This is definitely the one that you would want to put in. It's 1 to 2 feet tall, 1 to 2 feet wide at maturity. It has a very slow growth rate, so it's going to put on 1 to 2 inches a year. Again, it's a shorter one, so it's not going to take quite as long to be mature size, but just keep that in mind. It's not a fast growing plant. This one also has excellent disease resistance, so you can put this one in and have kind of peace of mind that it's not going to have too many diseases. Hardiness zone for this one again is zone 5 to 8, so it's touchy if you go further north in Wisconsin, but in Madison area where we're located shouldn't be too much of an issue unless we get a lot of those polar vortexes that like to hang out here in January and February. As with other boxwoods, doesn't like wet feet, doesn't have salt tolerance. It is drought tolerance once it gets established. It is rabbit and deer resistant, and it will tolerate growing near or under some of the black walnut trees. And the third new boxwood for this season is called Skylight, also in the Better Boxwood series like Renaissance was. This one is a big one. It's more like Green Mountain, where this particular boxwood called Skylight is 6 to 8 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. You can see in the photo here it's kind of pruned to be more of like a teardrop shape, pyramid shape. You probably could prune it to be columnar too if that's what you prefer. This one again has a fast growing rate, 3 to 6 inches per year, not as slow as Renaissance will be. This one also has the excellent disease resistance, including the boxwood blight. Hardiness zone on this one again is 5 to 9, so okay for us in southern Wisconsin, but if you're further north, it'll probably need a protected spot. Full sun to full shade again, and will tolerate the walnut trees or jugloan. It's rabbit and deer resistant again, and it still has the drought tolerance, but not great salt tolerance, and it does prefer to have the drier areas versus having wet feet. All right, so our first new tree for this season is a red bud called Black Pearl. We had a couple people ask for this last year, but I wasn't able to get it in, so I was able to snake some last fall when I was doing the ordering for 2026. This one is 15 to 20 feet tall, 15 to 20 feet wide at maturity. Red buds generally do have a slow growth rate the first 3 to 5 years they're in the ground, but once they're established, they can put on about a foot to a foot and a half of growth, depending on their site and how happy they are. Black Pearl will also have the lavender pink flowers that all red buds get. You can see in the photo here on the right. And then it has the burgundy purple leaves all season long. They don't tend to fade to kind of an olive green like Ruby Falls sometimes does. This one is more of an upright also, whereas Ruby Falls is a weeper. This is the upright form of that purple foliage. And as a note, it will also get kind of a yellowish fall color to it, so you get that a little bit added on there towards the end of the season for interest. Not deer and rabbit resistant, though from my experience, they tend to eat them in winter, usually February and March when they're getting kind of desperate for food and we still have snow on the ground or ice on the ground and the grass hasn't greened up yet. So if you do have these the first couple years, I do recommend fencing them, or if you found a spray that works, you can spray them to keep the deer from munching on your new plants. They are jug loan tolerant. I have quite a few at my house just because they'll grow under walnut trees. And with the dark purple foliage, it will need full sun in order to keep that coloring. If you put it in less than 6 hours of sun a day, you will see that kind of fade to that olive green color like you do with the Ruby Falls. And the second new redbud forest this year is called Hearts Afire. This is supposed to be an improvement on Flamethrower, which a lot of people have purchased over the last couple of years. I heard that it's supposed to be just a touch hardier for those of us here in Wisconsin. Some people weren't sure if Flamethrower was going to be a Zone 5 or a Zone 6. I have had mine in the ground since 2024, and it did make it through the last 2 winters. We'll see what it does this year because we just got yesterday, we got about a 1/4 inch of ice, and then now we have about 10 inches of snow on top of it. So we'll see what it does. Hearts of Fire is, again, an upright. It's 15 to 20 feet tall with about the same width. Same growing habit as I discussed with the previous redbud, where it doesn't put a lot of growth on the first few years, but then it will put on about a foot to a foot and a half every year after that. The Hearts of Fire is one where the new growth, you can see in the close-up photo, is more of like it's a redder color versus Flamethrower that's a little bit more muted. The new growth is kind of reddish, changes to orange, and then will fade to a green. So you kind of have like the tricolor effect with this one. Hardiness zone is 5 to 9, but like I said, it's supposed to be slightly hardier than Flamethrower. And it does also get those lavender pink flowers before the leaves come out in spring. So you'll see those first, and then once the flowers are done, then you'll see the leaves come out. Full sun to part sun is okay with this one. The coloration won't fade too much. If you put it in 4 to 6 hours of sun, like a part sun location, would not put it in full shade though, because I think you'll miss out on a lot of the color show with this. The deer and rabbit will also probably feed on this one as well once they get desperate in the winter. So again, fence it or spray it if you have deer and rabbits that you're worried about. But it is jug loan tolerant, so I will probably have to add one of these to my landscape too, just for research and science's sake. All right, a new flowering quince for us. We have sold these in the past. We usually have double take scarlet, I believe, and double take pink. And this year I was not able to get the double take pink in, so I got double take peach instead. Quince is it's more of a wild looking shrub. It doesn't fit into like a tidy garden where you can shear everything. So this one you would have to be prepared for it to kind of look more wild. Mature size is 4 to 5 feet tall and about the same width. The Double Take series offers the thornless varieties. Otherwise, if you get just a regular quince that's not in the Double Take series, you will have thorns on the branches. So it's nice to have that option if you don't want thorns on your plants. You can see here the flowers are going to be kind of a peachy, almost apricot color. Generally speaking, you'll find them flowering in May here in Wisconsin. right around the same time as when they leaf out, so you'll get both leaves and flowers at the same time. This particular quince does not produce fruit. So it'll get the flower, but you will not get any kind of quince fruits with these. Um, you'll have to get the regular, um, kind of like the straight species type of quince, which is not something that I was able to find from any of our suppliers. I did look because I had a couple people ask last year, but I didn't have any luck finding any of those. Hardiness zone for the double take peach is 5 to 9. So again, up north you're going to need a little bit of protection, but down here in southern Wisconsin should be okay. The deer and rabbits do like to eat this particular plant, so I would definitely fence this off until they get big enough to, withstand some somewhat regular feedings from the rabbits and deer. They prefer full sun to part shade, so 4 hours or more. 6 hours or more is even better. And they are heat and drought tolerant once established. So the first 3 to 5 years, you'll need to, regularly water them to make sure that they get established well enough, and then they can usually handle a couple of weeks of drought before they start to show signs of stress. But this one is basically an underused plant. People tend to forget about it once they're done flowering, so definitely a underused and unique plant for your landscape. All right, so a new bush honeysuckle for us this year is the Kodiak Jet Black. This one will have the maroon purple foliage all season instead of Kodiak Black that kind of changed to an olive green in the summer months. This one is still 3 to 4 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. The yellow flowers you can see in the photo will flower usually mid to late May, and it will continue kind of sporadically all summer long. So you'll have those flowers kind of all season, which they do also attract pollinators and hummingbirds. So if you're looking for either of those or both in your landscape, I would highly recommend this plant. Just as a clarification, the bush honeysuckle is not the invasive honeysuckle that the Wisconsin DNR has on their list, so you don't have to worry about planting an invasive shrub if you plant the bush honeysuckle. This one also will grow in full sun to full shade, so anything you have you can throw at it. This is a very versatile plant. It grows, like I said, full sun to full shade. It's tolerant of pretty much any soil type, clay, sand, anything in between. It's hardy to zone 3, so it's 3 to 8, so it's hardy pretty much everywhere here in Wisconsin. It's rabbit and deer resistant, it's tolerant of juglone and black walnut trees, and it's also heat and drought tolerant once it gets established. So it's a very hardy, very tough plant that I think a lot of people are a little bit leery of, possibly because of the honeysuckle part of its name. But I have a couple of them planted actually on the hillside at my house, and they do actually keep the soil in place, which is really nice. Don't have to worry about mulch and soil coming off the hillside every spring or summer when we get our thunderstorms. So like I said, very versatile plant, something that they improved on, and I think it's worth trying it out this year. All right, I decided to try a new forsythia this year. This one is called Magical Gold. It's kind of a medium sized shrub. We have Gold Tide, which is our short one. We have a couple of taller varieties that you can get that are 6 feet or more. Magical Gold kind of fits in between. It's a 4 to 5 foot tall and wide for mature size. Same as all the other forsythia, where it will flower yellow before the leaves come out, usually late April, early May, depending on whatever the March and April season decides to do. This one, as I was looking at the availability from our suppliers, this one is the one that I picked just because it flowers on old wood and new wood, whereas a lot of the other new ones coming out, they only flower on the new wood, and then if we get those late spring frost or snow, it tends to kill those flower buds, so you don't ever see any flowers. Where this one, because it's old and new wood, it will flower regardless of, if it has just the flower buds on the tips, it'll still flower on the inside on the old wood on the shrub. This one is hardy to zone 5 to 8, so kind of marginal further north, but again, in Madison area, it should be okay. Full sun to part shade. It generally prefers full sun, but you can push it a little bit if you put it on the west side of the house. If you give it morning sun, it's probably not going to flower quite as much, especially if it has afternoon shade. Um, and this one is also nice. You'll have green foliage all summer long, and then in the fall it will change to a nice burgundy purple color for you. Um, I have some along my driveway, so it is salt tolerant, so you can put this along the sideways or driveway if you put salt down. And the rabbits and deer leave it alone for the most part. I've really only had them feed on it once, and that was the polar vortex almost 10 years ago when it was so cold they couldn't find anything. So under normal circumstances in a fairly normal winter, they should leave this shrub alone as well. All right, another new tree for us, which I should note, this is not a new tree on the market. It's just one that we haven't gotten in the past. Usually I've gotten Sunburst and Skyline, and this year I decided to get Sunburst and Shade Master instead. It's a honey locust tree, so the Shade Master is a thornless type, so you won't have to worry about the thorns like some of the older varieties have. It's hardy to zone 4 to 8, and it does prefer full sun. If you have part shade, that's okay. Full shade is not, the tree's not going to do very well in the understory of a forest, but most people plant them, out in their lawns anyway, so it's going to probably get 6 hours or more of sun that it needs. These are also juglone tolerant, so you can plant them close to a walnut tree or a butternut tree. And these are interesting. They're deer resistant, but they are not rabbit resistant. So deer will not eat the bark off the tree. They won't eat the branches, but rabbits will actually strip the bark off of the tree in the wintertime. So I generally recommend to put some sort of tree wrap or like a plastic around the trunk, usually in October, and then take it back off in April to prevent the bunnies from eating the trunk of the tree. The Shade Master is one that will come out green. The foliage will come out green in spring, stay green all summer long, and then in the fall it gets the bright kind of golden yellow fall color. This one is actually an improvement of the Skyline that we've gotten in the past. The general improvement part is that it just has more horizontal branching than the Skyline does, where Skyline has kind of more of an upright horizontal. Shade Master is definitely more just horizontal branching. The mature size on Shade Master is about 40 to 45 feet tall and about 30 to 35 feet wide. So it's not going to be as huge as an oak or a maple, but it's also not going to be a smaller size of a crabapple tree. So it's kind of, again, one of those medium-sized trees. And that takes care of the first half of the alphabet. You have part 1 taken care of here. If you do have questions on any of these trees or shrubs, or you want to see if we have any of them in stock, you can call either of the stores. Phone numbers are listed there. You can also email us at kandagreenhouse@gmail.com. Somebody will get back to you then. All of these plants should be in the nursery yard at some point this season. Some are going to be arriving in time for our opening day. Others won't arrive until summer. It just depends on when the suppliers have them available. So just because it's on our list and it's in my PowerPoint here doesn't necessarily mean that we'll have them all right away for our opening in April. So sometimes it's easier just to check and make sure before you make the run out. Or if you just need an excuse to go shopping at the nursery yard, come on out and see what we have.